Well, thank you all for coming today. My last time here was my first time away from Jupiter, and I was extremely nervous. I sort of watched my talk yesterday, and I was like, oh, I was a little nervous. But there is nothing better than to be invited back somewhere. And, there's really only two things people want, is acknowledgement and appreciation. And to be invited back here is probably the biggest validation of my message it could possibly be. Jupiter almost has to invite me over there since I'm part of the group. I'd like to thank Reverend Denney today for inviting me again, and Suzanne and Lori for making us all feel so welcome. And our son lives up in Marathon now. He's working up at the Grassy Flats Resort, so we got to spend a little time with our adult child, which is a little, always a special thing. So I appreciate that too. So my talk today is about the spiritual awakening and how important this is in our lives. And there's sort of a subtopic that goes along with it called Be Happy. And I have a little handout later on for you all that has a Be Happy prayer, which was a tremendous part of my personal spiritual awakening. So, first of all, how do we know if we've had one? How do we know if we're enlightened or we've had a spiritual awakening? And if we remember the quote from Ram Dass, he said, if you think you've had a spiritual awakening, spend a week with your family, and then you'll know. So this is sort of, we have a little litmus test we can go along as we go along our spiritual journey. As soon as we can be with our family in peace, we've probably made it pretty far. And to me, what is the spiritual awakening? We hear about it all the time. What is it? So to me, it sort of goes like this. We're born into this world, and we come in and we enter this physical body, and for a little while, we're a physical being having a physical experience. We sort of go through our childhood, and then somewhere along the line, I think it's in our early 20s, where something happens and we realize that there is a power greater than ourselves. There's something bigger out there. And then the awakening happens, and we realize that we are actually spiritual beings having a physical experience. And I think that's the big aha of the unity and of all these metaphysical churches, and understanding that one thing, that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. To me, this is the awakening, understanding this. It's being born again, so to speak, being born again from the physical world to the spiritual world, and learning that we can take control of our minds, and direct them where we want for what we want. And this freedom to think, to choose the thoughts we want to think. That's why we're here in Jupiter. So our lives are really a great quote from a friend of mine named Kevin Rice. Our lives are nothing but an outward picture of an inward condition. And as soon as we change the inward condition, the outward picture changes. It's a cause and effect universe. And this, to me, has been my lifelong journey. How do we get more and more of that? So enlightenment, the Course in Miracles said, enlightenment is not a change at all, but a recognition that we are divine children. And also makes us realize what it means in the Lord's Prayer. It'll be done on earth as it is in heaven. Heaven is within us. When we change our mind, our earthly appearance changes. So my spiritual awakening came in 1985-86. I moved to California after college. Thought I would get discovered as an actor, director, producer, or something along the lines, which I had no business doing. But sometimes God has bigger plans for us. And one of the main things along this spiritual journey is I think I'm doing something for one reason, but God has another plan. So moving to California, I thought I was going out there for some career in entertainment, but the real reason was to meet my mentor of my life. And I was there about 2 months, and my mother called me up and she said, John, put on a tie and jacket and go over to this man's birthday party. So we went over to the house of Carol Reiter, who was the astrologer to Hollywood's Rich and Famous. He was Ron and Nancy Reagan's astrologer. He was very well known in the astrology world, and we were at his 85th birthday party in 1985, and that night I got to meet the happiest single person I've ever met in my life. Someone who I believe was really solving this mystery of life. And in the next few years, he taught me a few concepts, and two of them are really the foundation of unity. But thoughts are things, and we become what we think about. This is Metaphysics 101, but when this aha came to me, I was standing in my apartment, I'm like, thoughts are things, we become what we think, and that's when this whole light bulb went off. We are really just living in an outward picture of my inward condition, and couldn't have been clearer. So if that's true, thoughts are things, we become what we think, we better be becoming expert thinkers, and I think that that's why we're all here in unity. You know, I think the Fillmores were expert thinkers. I think a lot of the people, you know, there was great leaders in the beginning of the 20th century, but, you know, we look for them. Who were the great thinkers? And so we need to become expert, great thinkers, and that's why we're here. Charles Fillmore says, all causes are essentially mental. All causes. And whoever comes in contact with a higher order of thinking on a daily basis must take on some of that. And as I shared with you all the last time we were here, our meditation is all about a higher order of thinking, getting us back to our true nature of perfect health, of perfect harmony, of abundant supply. Like we're seeing love, peace, and abundance. So we practice these things. So after Carol passed away in 1985, I was sort of out in California, a little bit lost. Obviously, I hadn't been discovered yet as an actor or director, so it was time to move back to New York to get a job or get serious about my life. Again, I thought. But God had different plans. So I moved back to New York to reconnect with Barry, which was really, I think, the purpose, to find my soulmate and go on this journey with her. I didn't know that at the time, but she had tickets to Grateful Dead shows for 4 days in a row, and that's we'd reconnect, going to some Grateful Dead shows. And when I moved back from California, the license plate on my car said RVDHLTH, Radiant, Vital, Dynamic Health, which in our meditation is our natural condition. And Barry wanted to know what that was all about. She said, well, what does your license plate mean? I'm like, well, it's a state of mind. And she's like, well, what's that mean? I said, well, it's part of this meditation I do. And she said, well, I want to know what that is. And so we went to Central Park in the middle of Manhattan. We sat down on a rock. We did the harmony exercise together. And when she opened her eyes, and we opened our eyes together, it was everything was a little bit brighter, a little bit more connected. And so I don't know if it was the Grateful Dead or the harmony exercise, but something brought us together for the last 30 years, and I'm very grateful for that. So I love you, Barry. So a couple of things that have helped us and myself on this metaphysical journey to try to become better people. The first is meditation and prayer, something I spoke about last time, and I have a website called The Harmony Exercise where I do one every day, and today is about day 1,890 something, where I have made consistent daily meditation. December 1st, 2016, I made a commitment to be a daily meditator and have not missed one day since. And that has been the real proving factor of all this. I could have come and done this talk 10 years ago, but I couldn't have done it from the space I do it now. It would have been do as I say, not as I do. But now I can say, well, this is what I do, and it works for me, and I'd like to share it with you. But it's a completely different level of confidence. And so that obviously feels very good. I learned the harmony exercise from Carol probably in '86 in the back of a little church, smaller church than this. And sitting in a back room, and there was only about 6 or 7 people there, and the minister took us through the harmony and took us through this meditation, and it was like I was just remembering it. It was like I'd done it before, I don't even know, in other lives or something, but it was something that was very familiar with me, even though I was learning it for the first time. And you find people who come to Unity feel that way. They feel very welcome immediately. So we have always made this practice of meditation and prayer something with our family. And it has really proved to us that a family that prays together stays together. I come from a long line of divorces. Her parents are divorced, but we come from, and we're coming up on 30 years soon of being really together. And I truly believe that a daily practice where we come together in one mind has been the magic to it all. I always said, even if meditation and prayer don't work, for 10 minutes in our house, no one's arguing because only one person's talking. So, and then later on I realized, wow, for 10 minutes in our house, we're all thinking the same thoughts at the same time. We're all thinking, I love you at the same time. Thank you at the same time. I'm perfect health, you're perfect health at the same time. And that is truly what the mastermind is, two of us becoming one mind. And that has proved itself to be extremely powerful. And we would do it as a family. We'd finish our meditation and we'd call the children over, and the four of us would hold hands when they were old enough to hold hands, and have a little prayer request, and then we'd have the Lord's Prayer or some little prayer and go about our day. And now we have a 22-year-old and a 24-year-old who don't have drug problems, have bank accounts that seem to be going up and not down, and so it's a good feeling to have adult children that are being productive members of society. Thank you, God. I don't think I could have handled myself. And I really knew that the first person, the first girl who embraced this meditation would be the one that I would marry, and Barry was very much that. Connecting the dots, looking back, and just as far as in the Bible, it says when two or more come together, asking for something, it will be done. And they ask believing. So seeing is evidence. So the second thing that's really helped us is seeing, like the physical results, the physical evidence of our metaphysical causes. What we think about, we bring about. So a couple examples here is synchronicities and coincidence. We hear about them all the time. So just yesterday, we were visiting my son up in Marathon at his little retail store, and there was one set of customers going through the line. And we started speaking to them and quickly realized that we had a bunch of things in common. We both worked down in the British Virgin Islands for a while. We had many common friends in common. And it realized to me, if we weren't awake, if we weren't open to this experience, we would have been stuck doing what we were doing. We would have missed that whole encounter. And so often when we get unhappy or we get sucked into the world, we seem to, I think the blessings are still there, we just aren't we aren't awake to them. We miss them because we're caught up in other things. Another thing that happens so often is my favorite number is 444. It is like an angel number. When I see this number, I know that life is going well and God's with me. And when I'm awake, I see this number all the time, or I see or versions of it. And when I'm again caught up in myself, caught up in my world, I don't see it. They're probably out there, but I'm just unconscious to them because you go through life unconscious, and that's what this spiritual awakening is so about. We've done self-help groups and retreats, and if you've heard of Alan Cohen, Charlie Threet, we would do his mastery trainings. And again, just random meetings on airplanes. We're coming into a landing one time, and we meet Charlie Thweet, who's a great posse musician, and he's sitting in the chair across from us, and we tell him we've bought property on Hawaii. He tells us that his good friend Alan Cohen lives right down the street from us. And then we get his book. Next thing you know, we're at a mastery retreat on the Big Island and starting our self-help journey. And we learning about eye contact and learning about that we're divine children of God. Just the whole thing. But we have to take action for those things to happen. But it's amazing. As we wake up, coincidences and synchronicities. I said in the first couple years of becoming a daily meditator, I said, the number of these coincidences seems to be on the rise. Little do I realize now, I was just waking up to them. They were there all the time. I was missing out on them. Tequila doesn't open up the doors to many blessings, however, the awakening does. We even came up with new names after our mastery retreats. We would no longer say it was a coincidence. We'd say it was a coincidence. And, so using little plays on words we found to be sort of fun. And then the next thing that's really helped is having a vision. And it says in the Bible, where there is no vision, the people perish. But when you keep the law, you will be happy. So this is one that I learned about when I first got to Unity. I took a course called Prosperity Plus. It was a Mary Morrissey course. And the first day we're in there, they want you to write down your vision and goals. And they want you to write them down as if they're already done. So I wrote down, I'm working with professional golfers. I'm working with collegiate teams. I do sports psychology. I am teaching the harmony. I wrote down all these goals that I wanted to achieve. And while I'm writing it down, I'm thinking, this is a bunch of garbage. How can this possibly help anything happen? Well, within 6 months, every single thing I wrote down that day happened. I was working with a professional golfer. All the different avenues were opening up. And now, honestly, standing here in front of you guys is really amazing to me, because when I look back at my visions, this was one. And now to be here doing it, how did it happen? I had no idea how, but it did. So again, we don't know how things are going to happen. We just can trust they will. So my family's visions. My son graduated from high school about 3 years ago, and college was not on the option. It was just not going to be a good choice for him. So we started developing some visions for him, and we sent him he got his captain's license in boating, and then he started to get his pilot's license, and then COVID came, and then one thing led to another, and his main passion in life is these water sports, so wakeboarding and wake skating and all these different sports, kiteboarding, and that's his true love. Well, one thing leads to another, and now he is the head instructor up at the Keys Cable Park, giving these lessons and doing what he loves. And we went down to visit him, and my wife's vision is being a designer. And so after our kids graduated, she got a job at Restoration Hardware, then she got a partner down in Wellington designing big houses, and then that led in, we went down to visit Luke, and the next thing you know, Barry is designing a 30-room hotel in Marathon, the entire thing, and the owner's house. I'm just like, look how that vision opened up to this vision. And then, now I'm standing here. So you got Luke's vision working nicely, you got Barry's vision working perfectly, and then my vision is working great here in Key West. So it's just incredible to see how the universe starts to make things happen when we tell it what we want. That's the problem. Most people don't tell it what we want. So last week I spoke in Jupiter, and the main part of my talk was kind of like what I talked to you guys about last time, was the game of life, but being happy. And when I went to the little church in California, on the wall in the front row was this poem, Be Happy. And this Be Happy prayer, again, has been a huge part of my personal spiritual awakening. So I want to share it with you, and I also want to add a little color through it, but I have versions for anybody who'd like to bring it home today. I brought copies with it to give you afterwards. So, the Be Happy prayer goes like this. Happiness is infectious. And if there's one thing we would like to be spreading right now, it would probably be happiness. And if there's one thing I wouldn't mind catching right now, it would be happiness. So happiness is infectious. And once set in motion, once we set this happiness in motion, it spreads like circles from a stone, dropped into a placid lake in ever-widening ripples that extend into space until they reach some thought obstacle impervious to them. Some thought obstacle. Anger, worry, fear, anxiety, panic, all the things we suffer from a daily basis. Those are the thought obstacles. And it goes on to say, unhappiness shrinks the soul and contracts the consciousness. I don't know about the soul part, but I do know what I was saying before. Unhappy people are very contracted. We don't see the lucky numbers. We don't meet the people in the stores because we're so caught up in our own little issues. So it contracts the consciousness. Where it says happiness lifts the load and opens avenues to greater happiness. Now here's the part. The key to happiness is not health, wealth, success, or freedom. Being happy is a poised accomplishment regardless of appearances. A sincere attempt to be happy is sure to result in happiness. Thus, the watchword of chirothesia, or unity, they were sort of one and the same. And it says, be happy is not an unfruitful suggestion, but a psychological seed capable of yielding an abundant harvest to anyone who will accept the challenge. Well, I'm like, that's a challenge I'm going to accept. And I don't pull it off every day, but my main intention is to be happy on a daily basis and make those around me happy. At least not suck them down. And so that is, and that has been a great watchword to live by. And coming up on 60 years old, I'm going to stick it out and keep going for the next, however long I'm here. I'm going to keep trying to accept this challenge. So at the end of the day, the spiritual awakening, we have this spiritual awakening, but nothing really happens. It's not like this, and suddenly we're walking on water and turning water into wine. I haven't found it to be like that. The spiritual awakening has been more of a progress, more of a progressive journey. And we all remember the Zen saying, before enlightenment, we chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, we chop wood and carry water. We just do it with a good attitude. We do it with love and gratitude. We do it with a smile on our face. And that's what we really learn here in unity. God is a power. It doesn't really care. It's no respecter of persons, but we're a majority. We can do all things. So I found God to be a lot like electricity. I don't really understand it, but I use it every day. I can plug in, and I can plug in for good. I can heat my house, cool my house, listen to music, cook a meal, or I can plug in for bad. I can electrocute something or blow up the house or whatever. So I can use this power of electricity for good or bad. To me, God is very much like that. When we plug in with gratitude, thank you, with love, with our truth, health, harmony, and abundance, it is returned to us multiplied. We become that immediately. So when you think a thought, it's coming. What we think about, we bring about. So, again, what I think, which is kind of cold, God is not interested in the problems we've created for ourselves. He's interested in providing the solutions of our truth. And all we need to do is accept it. Kind of like I talked about last time in the fruit of the Spirit. So we plug in with love, gratitude, and forgiveness. I love you, thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. The Ho'oponopono prayer is sort of one of those magic things. Staying in alignment, just staying connected each and every day, connecting with God, having a personal practice where we connect with our higher thoughts. Like Charles Fillmore said, if we think these higher thoughts, we're going to become part of them. And what I was taught is this statement of being. God is, I am. Those 4 words have really proved themselves beyond a shadow of a doubt to be powerful. So the world's full of all the problems we can imagine, but like Daniel in the lion's den, we keep our mind on the light, the lions will stay at bay. And I think that is really the trick, taking control of our own thoughts. Somehow we have to learn to live in this crazy world, but not get emotionally sucked into it and ruined by it, not get sucked down by it. Living in this world, but being not of this world. So again, I'm going to give you guys a handout if you'd like to take a version of it. And as my good friend Kevin Rice always said, if no one has told you they love you today, let me be the first. I love you so much, and thank you so much for coming to listen to me this morning. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to come again soon. Thank you so much.